Roy Hendricks counted fuel cells in the storage bay for the third time that week. 17 cells remained, enough to supply maybe 4 ships if they needed full tanks. The numbers never changed, but counting gave him something to do besides stare at empty space through the observation windows. Granite Station floated alone in the debris field, surrounded by chunks of dead satellites and broken mining equipment. Once, 3 colonies had thrived in this sector. Now only wreckage remained, scattered across the void like forgotten tombstones. Roy had purchased the station 7 years ago for almost nothing. Nobody wanted a fuel depot at the edge of nowhere, but it was all he could afford after losing everything in the Terraform Initiative collapse. The station creaked and groaned as its gravity generators struggled to maintain equilibrium. Roy made a mental note to check the starboard stabilizers again. Everything here needed constant maintenance, constant attention, constant work to keep functioning, just like him. A proximity alarm chirped. Roy looked up from his counting, surprised. Ships rarely came through anymore. Maybe once every few weeks, usually smugglers or scavengers looking for cheap fuel and no questions. He walked to the control panel and checked the scanner display. One vessel approached, moving erratically. Its hull showed tearing design, all smooth curves and by organic plating that looked more grown than built. But something was wrong. The ship limped through space, trailing plasma from a ruptured drive core. Emergency beacons screamed across 17 different frequency bands. Roy activated the docking protocols and opened a communication channel. Static filled the speakers, then a voice broke through, speaking in clipped, desperate tones. The translator struggled to keep up. "Sanctuary, children, dying, need help." The ship crashed into the docking cradle harder than it should have. Metal screamed against metal. Roy grabbed his emergency kit and ran toward the airlock, his boots clanging on the grated floor. Whatever was happening, it was bad. The airlock cycled open. A Terran stumbled through, silver blood streaming from wounds across his torso. He collapsed against the wall, his breathing rapid and shallow. Roy had never seen a Terran up close before. Their species avoided contact with most others, paranoid about contamination and disease. "The children," the Terran gasped. 12, in cryosleep, pods failing. Roy helped him to the floor, trying to assess the injuries. The silver blood was toxic to humans, he knew that much. He pulled on protective gloves from his kit. "What happened?" "Pirates Consortium hired them. We were transporting refugees, plague survivors. Heading to medical sanctuary 3 jumps away. They wanted to stop us. Killed my crew. I escaped, but drives are damaged. The children, you must save them." The Terran's hand gripped Roy's arm with surprising strength. His eyes, large and amber, fixed on Roy's face with desperate intensity. "I am Orin, navigation officer, my crew. All dead, only me, but I am dying too. The children are innocent. They did nothing wrong, please." Roy nodded slowly. "Let me see your ship." He left Orin in the docking bay and entered the Terran vessel. The interior was unlike anything he had worked with before. Instead of wires and circuits, organic conduits pulsed with bioluminescent energy. The ship felt alive, wounded, struggling to maintain life support. He found the cryobay in the aft section. 12 pods lined the walls, each containing a small Terran child. The pods flickered, their power levels dropping steadily. Roy pulled up the diagnostic display. The interface was alien, but the principles were universal: power coupling failure, incompatible energy signature. The human fuel cells they would need were wrong frequency for Terran biotech. He could fix this. He had kept 15,000 colonists alive with improvised life support during the terraform disaster. He could jury-rig a solution, but it would take time and parts he did not have in surplus. Roy returned to the docking bay. Orin sat against the wall, his breathing weaker now. The silver blood pooled around him. "Can you help them?" "Yes, but I need you to tell me everything. Why does the Consortium want these children?" Orin's fingers fumbled with a data chip at his belt. He pulled it free and pressed it into Roy's hand. "Everything is here. Proof. The Consortium wants to control this trade route. They hired pirates to eliminate independent stations and ships. They want the children as leverage against the medical sanctuary. The sanctuary sits on valuable mineral deposits, political hostages. Roy looked at the data chip, then at the dying Terran. "They will come for you now," Orin whispered. "You should run, take the chip. Expose them, but the children, I cannot ask you to risk." "You are not asking," Roy said quietly. "I am choosing." He thought of his own daughter, lost in the colony collapse. She had been about the same age as these sleeping children. He had been off station when the life support failed, unable to save her, unable to even say goodbye. Somebody should have helped her. Somebody should have cared enough to try. Orin smiled weakly. "Why, we are strangers, different species. This will bring you only trouble." Roy stood up, the data chip clutched in his fist. Because somebody should, that is reason enough. He worked through the night as Orin's breathing slowly stopped. By dawn's cycle, the Terran navigator was dead. Roy closed his eyes gently and returned to work on the cryopods, his hands steady, his purpose clear. 12 children slept in the cargo bay, and he would not let them die, not like his daughter, not this time. Outside, in the vast darkness of space, ships were already moving toward Granite Station. The consortium had noticed Orin's escape. They were coming to finish what their pirates had started. Roy did not care. He had work to do. The cryopods hummed with unstable energy, their bioluminescent panels flickering between green and amber. Roy worked methodically, connecting human power cells to Terran bioconduits through a maze of adapter cables he had constructed from salvaged parts. Engineering was about understanding principles, not memorizing specific systems. Energy needed to flow. Biology needed stability. The rest was just creative problem-solving. He spoke to the children as he worked, even though they could not hear him through the cryosleep. It felt important somehow to let them know someone was there, someone was trying. "Your friend Orin was very brave," he said to the pod containing the eldest child, a girl named Scylla according to the pod readout. "He got you this far, I will get you the rest of the way." The station computer chimed. Incoming vessel detected. Roy checked the scanner without stopping his work. A sleek corporate ship approached, all polished metal and elegant curves. Consortium markings decorated the hull. They had arrived faster than he expected. Roy finished connecting the final power coupling and checked the cryopod diagnostics. Stable. The children were safe for now. He grabbed his jacket and headed to the docking bay. The visitor was already waiting when Roy cycled the airlock. A Pelion stood in the corridor, his scales shimmering with iridescent patterns that indicated calm confidence. He wore an expensive suit and carried no visible weapons. He did not need weapons. Corporations had other ways of hurting people. "Mr. Hendricks," the Pelion said smoothly. "I am Kravis, representing the Galactic Fuel Consortium. We need to discuss a business matter." "Not interested in selling," Roy replied. Kravis smiled, showing rows of small, pointed teeth. "You misunderstand. I am here about the Terran vessel currently docked at your station. We have reason to believe it contains stolen property. We are authorized to recover it." "The ship contains children, refugees from a plague zone, not property." "Semantics. The consortium has legal authority in this sector. We also have a generous offer for you. 500,000 credits for the ship and its cargo, no questions asked. You could buy a new station somewhere more profitable, somewhere safer." Roy looked at the Pelion for a long moment. "Get off my station." The smile faded from Kravis's face. "You are making a mistake. We know what you are protecting. Those children are valuable to certain parties. If you cooperate, everyone benefits. If you do not..." He let the threat hang in the air. Roy walked to the control panel near the airlock and entered a command sequence. Ancient weapon systems powered up, salvaged military hardware he had installed years ago. Targeting lasers painted red dots across Kravis's chest. "I said get off my station." Kravis raised his hands slowly, the confidence cracking slightly. "You cannot fight the consortium. We control supply routes across this entire sector. You will receive no more fuel shipments. No more food, no more parts. You will starve out here. I have survived 7 years on scraps and stubbornness, Roy said calmly. I can survive longer than your quarterly earnings report. Now leave. The Pelion backed toward his ship, his scales rippling with colors that indicated anger and humiliation. This is not over. You have 12 hours before we return with enforcement vessels. I suggest you reconsider. Roy watched the corporate ship depart, then returned to the cryo bay. The children slept peacefully, unaware of the danger surrounding them. He sat down next to Scylla's pod and activated the medical records Orin had left. The files told a heartbreaking story. The plague had swept through a Tarine colony world, killing adults but leaving children in a weakened state. The medical sanctuary 3 jumps away had developed a treatment, but it required specialized equipment found only at their facility. These 12 were survivors, orphans now, their only hope a journey across hostile space. Roy pulled up a photo from his own data files. His daughter smiled at the camera, her hair wild from playing in the colony gardens. She had been 8 when the life support failed, the same age as Scylla. He had been working on a mining station 2 systems away when it happened. By the time he got the distress signal and made it back, everyone was dead. 15,000 people, including his wife and daughter, gone because of faulty equipment and corporate cost cutting. The Terraform initiative had used cheap parts to maximize profits. When the systems failed, they declared bankruptcy and walked away. Roy had sworn he would never let that happen again. Never stand by while innocents suffered because of someone else's greed. He stood up and walked to the engineering section. If Kravis was telling the truth, he had 12 hours. That was enough time to prepare. Granite Station might be old and broken, but it had teeth if you knew where to look. Roy began rerouting fuel lines, creating explosive decompression zones in the outer corridors. He modified the gravity generators to create localized crush fields. He reprogrammed the cargo manipulator arms to respond to motion sensors. Every system, every piece of equipment became a potential weapon. The Tarine ship was his ace card. He loaded it with a basic autopilot program, enough to fly through the debris field on an evasive pattern. It would serve as a decoy, draw attention away from the station core where the children slept. As he worked, Roy thought about what Kravis had said. The consortium wanted these children as political leverage. They would kill to get them. They already had killed, murdering Orin's crew. But they had made a mistake. They assumed Roy was just another frightened merchant, someone who would fold under pressure. They did not understand what 7 years of isolation and loss had forged. They did not understand that some humans, when pushed far enough, stopped calculating odds and started calculating revenge. Roy checked the chronometer, 8 hours until they returned. He got back to work, his hands steady, preparing Granite Station for war. 3 ships appeared on the scanner exactly when Kravis promised. Roy watched them approach from the control room, his hands resting on the console. The vessels were mercenary craft, scarred and battle-worn, armed with weapons that made Granite Station's defenses look like children's toys. He activated the station-wide communication system and began his final preparations. The Tarine children were sealed in the reinforced core section, the safest place on the station. Life support was routed directly to their location, independent of the main systems. Even if the rest of Granite Station was destroyed, they would survive for days. The pirate ships docked simultaneously at 3 different airlocks. Roy counted the boarding party through security cameras. 30 armed mercenaries, maybe more. They wore mismatched armor and carried weapons from a dozen different manufacturers. Drellian shock troops moved with military precision. Hask scavengers chittered to each other in their clicking language. A Pelion commander directed the operation, probably Kravis's boss. Roy waited until they were all inside, then sealed the airlocks behind them. Now they were trapped on his station, in his maze, playing by his rules. The first group moved down the main corridor toward the docking bay where the Tarine ship was moored. Roy let them get halfway before triggering the trap. Fuel lines he had rerouted earlier ruptured on command, flooding the corridor with highly flammable vapors. A single spark from a damaged power conduit was all it took. The explosion was contained but devastating. 6 mercenaries died instantly. The others scattered, their confidence shaken. Royce spoke over the intercom, his voice calm and measured. "You are trespassing on private property. Leave now and I will let you live." The Pelion commander laughed. "Bold words for a dead man. We have you outnumbered and outgunned." "Numbers mean nothing when the battlefield itself is your enemy," Roy replied. He triggered the next trap. A squad of mercenaries investigating the engineering section found themselves caught in a localized gravity field that increased from standard to 5 times normal in seconds. Bones cracked. Armor collapsed. They screamed briefly before losing consciousness. The pirates began to understand. This was not a simple boarding action. The human had turned his entire station into a weapon. Roy moved through maintenance tunnels that only he knew, staying ahead of search parties. He used cargo manipulators to crush 2 Hask scavengers who got too close to the cryo bay entrance. He vented atmosphere in sections where groups gathered, watching them scramble for emergency suits. But he could not be everywhere at once. A team of Drellians found an alternate route toward the core section. Roy intercepted them in a storage bay, armed with nothing but a plasma cutter and desperation. The fight was brutal and short. Drellians were professional soldiers, trained for combat. Roy was an engineer who had not fired a weapon in years. He took down one with the plasma cutter, melting through armor before the soldier could react. The second put 3 rounds into Roy's side before he managed to trigger an emergency bulkhead that crushed the Drellian against the wall. Roy collapsed, blood soaking through his shirt. The pain was extraordinary, sharp and hot, making it hard to breathe. He pressed his hand against the wounds and kept moving. The children were still in danger. He made it back to the control room, leaving a trail of red behind him. The security feeds showed the remaining pirates regrouping. 15 left, maybe fewer. They had found the core section entrance and were trying to cut through the reinforced door. Roy initiated the final trap, the one he had built into the control room itself years ago, hoping he would never need it. He activated the Terran ship's autopilot and sent it flying into the debris field on maximum burn. The pirates noticed immediately, thinking the children were escaping. Half the remaining force rushed back to their ships to give chase. That left 7 at the core section door, including the Pelion commander. Roy met them there, stumbling out of the maintenance tunnel behind them. The commander turned, weapon raised, surprise on his reptilian face. "You should be dead," the Pelion said. "Probably," Roy agreed. He held up a data chip, the one Orin had given him. "But before you kill me, you should know what is on this. Evidence. Proof of everything the consortium has done, every illegal operation, every murdered crew, every falsified report." The commander hesitated. "That changes nothing." "It changes everything. I already transmitted copies to 20 different locations. News agencies, government offices, independent trader networks. If I die, it automatically releases to the public. But if you leave now, if you let these children go, I will bury it. Your employers can walk away clean." It was a lie. Roy had not transmitted anything. He was bleeding out, barely able to stand, and the data was still locked in the chip. But the commander did not know that. The Pelion stared at him for a long moment, weighing options, calculating odds. Then he lowered his weapon. "You are bluffing." Roy smiled, tasting blood. "Maybe. Are you willing to bet your career on it?" The commander made a gesture to his remaining troops. They backed away from the core section door, weapons still raised but no longer firing. The Pelion activated his communication device. "All units withdraw. Mission aborted." "Why?" one of the Drellians demanded. "Because this one human has proven more trouble than the entire operation is worth. Let him have his refugees. We will tell the consortium the children died in the firefight." The pirates retreated to their ships, leaving their dead behind. Roy watched them depart through the security cameras, then collapsed against the wall. The pain was overwhelming now, spreading from his side through his entire body. He had lost too much blood. He activated the communication system one more time and opened a broad-spectrum emergency channel. "This is Granite Station. I have 12 Terran children who need medical transport to sanctuary coordinates attached. I am injured and cannot complete the journey. Anyone receiving this, please help. They are innocent. They deserve to live." His vision blurred. The control room seemed to spin. Roy closed his eyes, hoping someone would hear, hoping the children would survive, hoping his death would mean something. Then darkness took him. Roy woke to the sound of voices speaking in languages he did not understand. His side burned with pain, but the bleeding had stopped. Someone had applied emergency medical gel to his wounds. He opened his eyes slowly. A Terran medical technician stood over him, her large amber eyes reflecting concern. Behind her, the control room was filled with people. No, not people. Beings. Multiple species all working together, checking systems and making repairs to his battered station. "Stay still," the Terran said through a translator device. "You have internal injuries. Moving could kill you." "The children," Roy managed to ask. "Safe sleeping, we received." "Your distress call. A Terran medical ship was only one jump away, traveling to the sanctuary. We came immediately." She paused. "You saved them. All 12 survived because of you." Roy tried to sit up. Pain lanced through his torso, sharp enough to make him gasp. The Terran technician gently pushed him back down. "You are human," she said, a note of wonder in her voice. "We have heard stories about your species, but never believed them. They say humans will destroy themselves to save others, that you do not calculate survival odds before acting. We thought it was exaggeration." "Just did what was right," Roy said quietly. A massive Havarian engineer appeared in the doorway, his 4 arms carrying equipment. "Station main power restored, gravity generators stable, life support functioning at 90% capacity. This place was held together by determination and luck." "Mostly determination," the Terran technician said, looking at Roy with something like reverence. Over the next hours, Roy learned what had happened while he was unconscious. His emergency broadcast had reached not just the Terran medical ship, but also a convoy of independent traders passing through an adjacent system. The traders had picked up the signal and spread it across their networks. Within hours, the story had gone viral across communication channels. A human running a failing fuel station had fought off corporate pirates to save alien children. The data chip Oren had given Roy, which the Terran technician had found clutched in his hand, contained proof of the consortium's illegal operations. News agencies were broadcasting the evidence continuously. The Galactic Fuel Consortium's stock value had collapsed. Directors were resigning. Governments were launching investigations. The company that had seemed untouchable was tearing itself apart. A young Kess journalist arrived at the station, her fur bristling with excitement. "Mr. Hendricks, I am Nira from the Independent Press Network. Your story is spreading across 12 sectors. Everyone wants to know about the human who stood against the consortium. Can you tell me why you did it?" Roy looked at her, exhausted and in pain. "They were children. Someone had to help them." "But you risked your life, your station, everything you owned. For strangers, for a species you had never even met before." "That is what made it important," Roy said. "They were strangers who needed help. What kind of person only helps people they know?" Nira's recording device captured every word. The interview would be broadcast across the galaxy, watched by billions. But Roy did not know that yet. He was too tired to care about fame or recognition. The Terran medical technician returned with a portable scanner. "Your injuries are severe. You need surgery that cannot be performed here. We must transport you to the medical sanctuary with the children. Our physicians can save you, but only if we leave within the next few hours." Roy looked around his control room at Granite Station, the home he had maintained alone for 7 years. "What about the station?" The Havarian engineer laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "The station will be fine. Independent traders are organizing a repair effort. Your stand inspired them. They are calling you a hero, human. You showed the galaxy that corporations do not own the frontier. I am not a hero, I just could not look away. That is what makes you one, the tearing technician said softly. They loaded Roy onto the medical ship on a stretcher, carefully navigating through the damaged corridors of his station. He insisted on seeing the children before they departed. The cryopods had been moved to the medical ship, their systems now stable and fully powered. Roy looked at the sleeping faces through the transparent pod covers. 12 small beings, fragile and innocent, completely unaware of the battle fought for their survival. Scylla, the eldest, had features that reminded him painfully of his own daughter. "Will they be okay?" he asked. "Yes, the sanctuary has the treatment they need. They will recover fully." The technician paused. "They do not know you yet, but they will. We will tell them about the human who gave everything to protect them." The medical ship departed Granite Station, joining a convoy of vessels that had gathered in the debris field. News crews recorded everything. The story was growing beyond Roy's control, becoming something larger than one man's choice. But Roy was not thinking about fame or politics. He was thinking about 12 children who would live to see adulthood, who would have the chance his daughter never got. That was enough. That was everything. The Tarine doctor who examined him on the ship was blunt about his condition. The internal bleeding damaged several organs. Human medicine could not repair this. You would die within days, but Tarine medical technology is different. We can save you, but the treatment is experimental for humans. There are risks. "What choice do I have?" Roy asked. "You could refuse treatment. Die peacefully. We would honor your sacrifice and ensure your story is remembered." Roy thought about Granite Station, floating alone in the debris field. He thought about the independent traders organizing to repair it. He thought about 12 children who deserved to grow up safe. "Do the treatment," he said. "I am not finished yet." The doctor's amber eyes showed approval. "You truly are remarkable. Most species would choose peaceful death over uncertain survival." Roy closed his eyes as the medical equipment surrounded him. "Most species did not evolve on Earth. We are stubborn about living." The darkness took him again, but this time it felt different. Not like dying, like sleeping before waking to something new. 2 weeks passed in fragmented consciousness. Roy would surface from the medical sedation for brief moments, aware of lights and voices, then slip back into darkness. The Tarine physicians worked constantly, using techniques developed for their own biology and adapting them for human physiology in real time. On the 15th day, Roy woke fully. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft hum of equipment. His side no longer burned with pain. He touched the area where the bullets had struck him and felt smooth synthetic tissue, warm and alive but different from his original flesh. The door opened. A small Tarine entered, moving hesitantly. She looked young, her scales still carrying the soft patterns of adolescence. She stopped when she saw Roy was awake, her amber eyes wide. "You are Scylla," Roy said, recognizing her from the cryopod records. She nodded, then spoke in careful, accented English. "I have been learning your language. The doctors said you might wake soon. I wanted to be able to thank you properly." "You do not need to thank me." Scylla moved closer to his bed. "Orin told me stories while we were running from the plague world. He said most species in the galaxy think only of themselves. That compassion is rare. But then you saved us. You fought for strangers. Why?" Roy thought about how to answer. "I had a daughter once. She died when I could not protect her. You reminded me of her. I could not save her, but I could save you." "That makes you sad," Scylla observed. "Taryn can see emotional states through body language. Your species broadcasts feelings strongly." "Yes, it makes me sad, but also grateful that you survived." Scylla reached out and touched his hand with her small fingers. The gesture was universal across species, offering comfort. "The others are waking from cryosleep too. We are getting stronger. The doctors say the treatment here will cure the plague damage. We will live full lives because of you." The door opened again. The lead Terran physician entered, followed by several others wearing formal robes. They bowed to Roy, a gesture of profound respect in their culture. "Roy Hendricks," the lead physician said, "you have been declared Shantala by our government. The title translates approximately to Shield of the Innocent. It is our highest civilian honor, given only to those who protect children at cost to themselves." "I do not need honors." "Perhaps not, but we need to give them. Your actions have changed how our species views humanity. We thought you were aggressive and unpredictable. Now we understand you are protective and courageous. There is a difference." Over the following days, Roy regained his strength. The Terran Medical Sanctuary was beautiful, built into the side of a mountain on a world with purple skies and 3 moons. Gardens filled with bioluminescent plants surrounded the facility. Children played in the courtyards, their laughter echoing off stone walls. The 12 refugees Roy had saved became his constant companions. They wanted to hear stories about Granite Station, about Earth, about what made humans different from other species. Roy tried to explain that humans were not particularly special, but they would not accept that answer. "You are special," Scylla insisted. "You chose to fight when running would have been logical. That is not normal behavior." "Maybe humans are not very logical then," Roy suggested. The children found that hilarious. News from the wider galaxy continued to arrive. The Galactic Fuel Consortium had fractured completely, broken into smaller regional companies. New regulations were being written to prevent monopolistic practices. Independent stations across the frontier had formed a collective, inspired by Roy's stand. Granite Station itself had become famous. Traders had not just repaired it, but expanded it, turning the lonely fuel depot into a symbol of resistance against corporate control. They wanted Roy to return and run it, to be the face of their movement. But Roy was not sure he wanted that. The quiet sanctuary was peaceful. The children needed him. Scylla had announced she wanted to become an engineer, to learn how to protect others the way Roy had protected them. The other children had similar dreams, all inspired by one human's refusal to look away from suffering. Then the message arrived that changed everything. A convoy had been attacked near the coordinates where Granite Station floated. Pirates, emboldened by the consortium's collapse, were raiding independent vessels. 3 ships had been destroyed. Civilians were dead. Roy read the report in his quarters, his jaw tight. The frontier needed protection. The station he had built, the symbol he had become, could do more than just fuel ships. It could be a sanctuary, a place where those in danger found help. He found Scylla in the garden, studying engineering texts on a data pad. "I am going back," he told her. "Granite Station needs me. People are dying out there." Scylla looked up unsurprised. "I know, I will come with you." "You are too young. You need to finish your treatment." "The doctors say I am cured. The plague damage is repaired. And I am not too young to help. You were alone before. You do not have to be alone anymore." 3 of the Terran medical staff volunteered to join them. They wanted to establish a frontier clinic, to provide care where none existed. The Havarian engineer who had helped repair the station sent a message saying he would meet them there. The Terran government offered a ship, a medical transport outfitted with advanced equipment. They also offered Roy citizenship, wealth, a comfortable position. He refused everything except the ship. "I already have everything I need," he told them. "A purpose, people who need help, that is enough." The journey back to Granite Station took 5 days. Roy spent the time teaching Scylla basic engineering principles, showing her how systems connected and interacted. She learned quickly, her mind sharp and curious. When they emerged from the final jump, Roy stared at the viewscreen in amazement. Granite Station had been transformed. New modules extended from the original structure. Ships orbited it constantly, traders and engineers still working on improvements. Lights blazed from every window. It was no longer a lonely outpost. It had become a community. Scylla stood beside him, looking at the station that had saved her life. "It is beautiful." "Yes," Roy agreed, "it is home." Granite Station was unrecognizable. What had been a failing fuel depot held together by stubbornness was now a thriving hub of activity. New docking bays extended from the original structure like branches from a tree. A medical wing, built by Terran engineers, gleamed with clean white surfaces. Living quarters housed permanent residents, people who had chosen to make the station their home. Roy walked through corridors that had once echoed with loneliness, now filled with voices from a dozen species. A Hask family ran a small restaurant near Docking Bay 3. Drellian mechanics worked in the expanded engineering section. Human traders shared stories in a common area that had not existed 6 months ago. Scylla followed him everywhere, a data pad clutched in her hands, taking notes on everything he did. She had appointed herself his apprentice, and Roy had learned there was no arguing with a determined Terran teenager. "The fuel distribution network needs upgrading," she observed, looking at the flow diagrams Roy had pulled up. "The current system was designed for 4 ships per day. We are servicing 40. Yes, we need to expand the storage capacity and add redundant pumping stations. Can you draft a proposal?" Scylla's scales rippled with pleasure at being given real responsibility. "I will have it ready by tomorrow." The medical clinic opened officially that week. The 3 Terran physicians who had accompanied Roy from the sanctuary had transformed an empty cargo bay into a proper facility. They treated injuries and illnesses for anyone who docked at the station, regardless of ability to pay. Word spread quickly. Granite Station became known as a place where help was available. Refugees arrived, fleeing conflicts or disasters. Independent traders used it as a safe harbor. Even some former consortium employees, disgusted by their company's actions, came seeking honest work. Roy tried to manage it all, but the station had grown beyond what one person could handle. He found himself in meetings with station council members, traders' representatives, and species liaisons. It was exhausting and frustrating, and nothing like the quiet isolation he had lived with for 7 years. But it also felt right. Purpose had replaced loneliness. Community had replaced silence. 6 months after his return, a familiar ship appeared on the scanners. Roy recognized the configuration immediately. Pelian design, corporate markings. His hand moved instinctively toward the weapon's console before he stopped himself. The station had defenses now, real ones, maintained by former military personnel who had volunteered their expertise. The ship docked peacefully. Kravis, the Pelian representative who had first offered to buy the Terran children, walked through the airlock with his hands visibly empty. "I come under flag of truce," Kravis said carefully. "I am no longer employed by the consortium. They dissolved my division. I have information you might find valuable." Roy studied him. "Why would you help me?" "Because what you did was right. I knew it was right even when I was threatening you. I was just too much of a coward to act on it." Kravis pulled out a data chip. "This contains evidence of other illegal operations, projects the consortium ran that never made it into Orin's files, slavery, weapons trafficking, worse things." Roy took the chip. "What do you want in return?" "Forgiveness, perhaps, or just a chance to sleep without nightmares. I was complicit in terrible things. I cannot undo them, but I can help prevent future ones." The information Kravis provided led to more investigations, more arrests, more corporations exposed for criminal activities. Granite Station became an unofficial clearinghouse for whistleblowers and refugees from corporate malfeasance. Roy never sought that role, but it found him anyway. Scylla completed her first independent engineering project, a water reclamation system that increased the station's efficiency by 30%. She presented it to the council with confidence that reminded Roy painfully and wonderfully of his daughter. "You would have been friends," he told her afterward, showing her a photo of his daughter for the first time. Scylla studied the image carefully. "She looks kind like you." She was too kind for the universe she lived in. "Maybe the universe is getting kinder," Scylla suggested, "because people like you refuse to accept cruelty as normal." The anniversary of the battle came quietly. Roy spent it alone in the observation deck, watching ships come and go. A year ago, he had been dying in the control room, hoping someone would save the children he had protected. Now those children were thriving, and the station had become something beyond his wildest imagination. A message arrived on his personal channel. It was from the Terran government, an invitation to speak at their Council of Worlds. They wanted him to address representatives from 50 species about the importance of protecting refugees and standing against corporate tyranny. Roy deleted the invitation. He was not a politician or a speaker. He was an engineer who had done what needed doing. Others could make speeches. A proximity alarm chimed. New arrival. Roy checked the scanner out of habit. A small personal craft, heavily damaged, broadcasting distress signals. He activated the docking protocols and headed for the airlock. The pilot was Velasian, her crystalline skin cracked and leaking fluid. She collapsed as soon as the airlock opened. "Please," she gasped. "My family, 3 children. Our ship was attacked by raiders. They are still out there, hiding in an escape pod, coordinates attached. Please help them." Roy was already moving, grabbing his emergency kit, calling for the medical team, alerting the defense ships that patrolled near the station. Scylla appeared beside him, her own toolkit in hand. "I am coming with you. It could be dangerous. I know, that is why you need help." Roy looked at her, seeing determination in her young face. She had learned from him, but she had also grown into her own person. Strong, capable, willing to help strangers. They boarded a fast rescue ship together, along with 2 Drellian security volunteers. The Velasian children were located within an hour, frightened but alive, hiding in a debris field similar to the one that surrounded Granite Station. As they brought the family back to safety, Roy realized something. This was not just his station anymore. It belonged to everyone who chose to help, everyone who refused to look away from suffering, everyone who believed the galaxy could be better. Granite Station had become exactly what it needed to be, not a fuel depot, a beacon, a promise that help existed for those who needed it most. And Roy Hendricks, the stubborn engineer who had only wanted to be left alone, had found something better than isolation. He had found purpose, family, and a reason to keep fighting for a kinder universe. The work was never finished. There would always be someone who needed help, but now he did not have to do it alone.